Okay, so in this scenario, what I will do, I will create one user. Okay, that is view user 3. Okay, and I will give all privileges on all resources on K-test cluster. Fine. So this user will be having a full privileges, but only read, not update, delete, create, patch. Okay. So all these permissions this user will not be having. He can only do get, list, watch, where star. So he can monitor the cluster. So why we are creating such users? Because L1 team, monitoring team or L1 team can closely monitor the cluster. So what the status of pods, services, deployments, daemon sets, replica sets. Okay. So this user having enough permission on the cluster level so that he can monitor the cluster, all the cluster resources, cluster health. Okay. But he cannot change. Even if he try to delete one pod, he will not be able to do. If he try to create one pod, he will not be able to create the pod. Okay. But he is having access to view all the namespaces, inside the namespaces, all the pods, all the services, all the deployments, everything. Okay. So let me start the activity. So first I will do, I'll create user. Okay. So view user 3 I created. Okay. And then the next is I'll create the CSR for this user. So CSR. Fine. CSR is done. Now I will generate the certificates. So this is user 3. Fine. All looks good. So just create it. Scope. I think somewhere it's user 2 is there. That's what it's throwing error. View user. What? Throwing the error. User 3 namespace. Sure, it's throwing error. So the certificate is forbidden. User 2 cannot be resource. Okay. So I think Kubernetes. Let me switch the context. Kubectl config use context. So I'll use minikube, right? Let me try now. Yeah, it's done. Because I was in the different namespace. That's what it was throwing error. Now I'll approve the CSR. Yeah, done. So the next step is I can download it, the CSR, So later we can use if required. In this file you can check the CSR. Okay, so this is the certificate. Now the next step is I'll configure the kubectl for this new user, okay, so that he can run the commands. So just run it. This is done. So the fourth step is I'll create a cluster role and cluster role bind file, okay, for the user 3. View only role, and this, so this name is already exists, so I'll give 1 and 1. So let me copy this. Okay, till here. So let me create vi cluster role bind view user 3 dot yaml. Copy. Now kubectl apply -f and then this file name. So both role cluster role and cluster role binding is created. So the next step is this is done. Now we have created. Switch back to the user 3. When we set credentials earlier with this kubectl config credential, this is done already. So I'll give the, let me set the context. Okay, so context is, this is done. I set the context. So now okay, I'll go to the user 3 context and then I will try kubectl run view 3 pod hyphen image is equal to forbidden. So this user is not able to create any pod because this user is only a view user. He can monitor the resources. So if I give kubectl get sbc -a, he can list all the services. If I give get pod a, he can view all the ports across the cluster, across all the namespaces. Okay, so this is the namespace like Argo CD, default, Cube system, Kubernetes dashboard. So he can see, he can monitor all the pods. But if he try to delete or create or update anything, he will not be able to do. So if he can run kubectl get node also. Okay, all the commands. But let me try kubectl get pod. Okay, so let me try this to delete Apache pod. Okay, so kubectl delete pod and then Apache pod. So it's throwing error. Okay, because this user doesn't have permission. Fine. So by this way you can create a user and you can assign a cluster role and cluster role bind. Okay, cluster roles, so that he can only monitor the cluster. He's having a cluster level access, but still he cannot delete, update, patch anything, okay, in any namespace. But he can view the uh, cluster. Fine. So the next is there is a command that what activities he can perform. So this one, just try this. I'll check. Okay. So what it's saying, kubectl auth, can I list pods? Then the answer is yes. This user, view user 3, can list the pods. So kubectl auth, can I delete pods? No, the answer is no. He cannot delete. Now the same thing, I can do it. Can he create deployment? The answer is no. Okay. So this is the file. I'll explain you. Cat. So user 1 and then user 3. So this is the file. So this is the cluster role file. So the role name is view role. Okay, only view only role 1. What access he is in having on all the resources. Okay, and what he can do, get, list and watch. And the API groups I have given is applications, batches, extensions, networking and RBAC authorization. So in that also he can only do get, list and watch. Now this is the role binding. So I'm this role I created, and with this view user 3 I'm binding this role. So this user will be having only get, list and watch permission only. Fine. So I'll stop the video here, and the next I will create video on I'll I'll create video on cluster role and cluster role bind for the deploy user. Okay. So deploy user will be having access uh, across the cluster, and he can deploy, delete, patch. Okay. So he can do everything on the cluster level. Fine. So